All right. Let's do a little Q&A then. A little Q&A with some studies I found. Let's see if you can apply what we just learned to certain studies that I found online. Let's see how we do. Let's see how we do. Good. Good for you, B. You turn your TIs off for a while. Just kind of kick back, relax. Kick back, relax. All right. Let's take. Oh, you can't see that. I wonder if it's the weather. Yeah. Or just the fact that it's 2 days after Easter. I got that excuse at 105 yesterday. Oh, it was Easter yesterday. I'm like, why is Easter so exhausting? Is it like you have to run on Easter? What's that? A lot of eggs to find. A lot of eggs to find? Is that? Is it like Total Fit? Like Total Fit? I was working.
I think you have to deal with family.
Oh, mentally exhausting. Maybe mentally exhausting. Good, good. Okay, well, we'll try to wake you up a little bit here. Okay, so here's a few studies. Some of these we're going to see again and again. I've actually been able to collect some data from some of these. Very often, you see a headline. The headline makes a claim. It's generally designed to elicit a response from you, because that's what sells. And then the study, once you finally get into it and look at the numbers involved, yield nothing. I mean, it's meaningless, essentially. So, these are a couple. I actually have the data from this one. We'll analyze this one in class. Studies show, most of these are going to say studies show that diet may trigger adverse behavior in children, which is going to lead most of us to utter one three-letter word. Duh. I mean, that's pretty much a given. And one of my favorite stories my mother told me was when I think I was 5 or 6 years old, maybe even younger. Her and my dad were going on a date and left me with my aunt and uncle, who were childless at the time. Forgot to tell them not to give me strawberry ice cream, and the red food dye in that was the one main thing that triggered my ADD. Back then it was called hyperactivity. It wasn't labeled ADHD at the point, it was hyperactivity. The story goes, they came back from their date, I was naked, passed out on my uncle's leg, he was in his boxer shorts, and my aunt was biting her nails in the corner. That's the story. The story goes. I think it's just anecdotal evidence of this headline, yes? So what do you think? How would a study like that be set up? How do you think? You can't get into it because all I gave you is the headline. But how do you think a study like that would be set up? What do you think?
Gathering of children and seeing...
What kind of kid? What kind of children?
I don't know.
You have to have an age range.
Okay, maybe split it by an age range. What's a child defined as? Say like 5 to late teens, mid-teens, something like that. Okay, good. We brought the age range. How do we know that diet triggers adverse behavior? You need a control group, and you have to figure out what adverse means, right? What does adverse mean? It's really all about the definitions. What does adverse behavior mean? What does that mean?
Depends.
Doesn't it now? You have to define adverse behavior. How do you think? Where do you think this data was collected? In what area? Perhaps in school. Was it done at home? I would guess not. Too hard to control the data, and I don't mean control the home environment, control the data. Remember how I sent you guys outside during the last experiment with the stopwatches? I did that because of the beeping. Why would the beeping perhaps cause an issue? It would be interesting to see, now that I say it out loud, I should have had half of you go into one room together and see how your times compared. Because maybe once we hear a beep, we then close ours off too, triggered by the beep. That would have been fun. I'll try that next term, maybe. See what happens. But the idea is you try to control for that kind of stuff. Controlling for it means you remove that variable from the construct. If I let the kids, if I'm measuring them in the home, and I don't have a researcher in there with their lab coat and their clipboard, it might be too easy to let certain variables, which may also influence the behavior, like a sibling kicking you in the crotch. That might influence your behavior too, but it's outside the realm of diet and might have the similar adverse effects. Fair? Good. Similarly down here, study finds people who multitask often bad at it. It's a fairly old study now. It's 5 years old. Stanford did it 5 years ago. It's a really, really interesting one. But the first thing I asked was what? What do you think the first thing I asked was? Who they studied. Good. 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 Who they studied? How many? They got enough, which was good. You'll look at this data in detail. Please.
What the tasks are they're doing?
Yes. What tasks? Is it a task like checking your Twitter account? Is it a task like doing mathematics? Is it a task like matching antonyms with synonyms or something like that? I mean, what level of multitasking or of tasks are we talking about? And not to mention that, what does bad mean? What does bad mean? Is it a certain correct versus versus incorrect rate, all of that will be answered as we analyze this study. It's a very, very fun study. Good, 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 good. But it really all is about the definitions. Here we go. Confirms fluoride reduces children's IQ. Confirms. And I gave you this one, but by all means, track that link down. Good, Chubb. I see the... Go ahead.
I just think about what areas those might be.
As I would too, right? Is fluoride the only thing?
What if your kid doesn't drink a lot of water?
That's good. In other words, that answers Shelby's question. The answer is no, it's not the only thing, right? So the question then becomes, what other variables are affected? As soon as I read the third sentence, I think it was, hang on a second, it said something along the lines of, no, it's the first sentence. Children who live in areas with highly fluoridated water have significantly lower IQ scores. Okay, I got no problem with that statement. My problem is, Harvard study confirms fluoride reduces children's IQ. This is textbook. Correlation does not necessarily imply causation, but the headline in whatever this is from, Dr. Joe Mercola, I don't know where I pulled this from. But regardless, the headline says something different than the study itself. The study just says we found a correlation. Kids that live in these areas of highly fluoridated water have lower IQs. The headline says the fluoride caused the lower IQs. That's totally different, yes? That's totally different. That is completely different. But it's often made. Go ahead, Danielle.
Well, because they're in two separate areas. I mean, most fluorinated water is in cities.
Is that true? That makes sense, doesn't
Because
it?
they put fluoride in the water.
Does that make sense, or is that chlorine I'm thinking? I'm thinking more chlorine in the water in cities. Why is it an urban thing, do you think?
Well, you can't put fluoride in a well. And that's where...
But you could add fluoride to the water post-well, yes. I mean, not that you would do it on your property. Like city water in Bend, if you get city water from Bend, you could fluoridate that water. Not well water, but like Tumalo Creek water or Avion, you could fluoridate that water
But
at the
like
plant.
kids that live out in the country, most of them are on wells.
Absolutely, but what percentage of those would be, I mean, then it becomes, okay, absolutely, but it becomes, from your last project, remember how Gallup screwed up with the Dewey-Truman election?
Right.
They relied too heavily on a small minority, and we wouldn't want our study to do that either, rely on a small minority of country kids. Although it would be a fun study to do, that might not be what the target population or sample is here. What are you thinking?
Since it says they live in the areas with highly fluoridated water, it's not saying they're consuming water.
Exactly! It just says there's a correlation with their zip code and their IQ, essentially, right? Their zip code and their IQ. Nowhere in there does fluoride actually play an active role except the headline. I mean, honestly, the headline could just as easily say, lower IQ caused by certain zip codes. I mean, honestly, if you think about it, what I just said is correct. It has nothing to do with the consumption of the water, except in the headline. Good. Very good. What are you going to say?
Well, sometimes zip code indicates socioeconomic status.
Of course, which might also be a variable in the study that's being ignored, maybe. See, the reason I make such a big deal about this is, this wasn't a controlled study at all. When I read that headline, I'm like, oh my God, how the hell did Harvard pull kids out of their home, make them drink fluoridated water or not fluoridated water in the control group, and keep them around long enough to test their IQ? And then I realized, oh, they didn't. They just simply looked at IQ from certain areas, and they did what's called data mining, which is when they went down and they said, what are some possible explanatory variables for this? Oh crap, high fluoride. Now, this is where I think the headline got it wrong. I'm not saying this isn't fascinating. I'm saying it's wickedly fascinating. I'm saying that is a premature conclusion from wickedly fascinating data. I'm saying that makes you go back in and take a second look and go, okay, we found maybe fluoride. What else? Socioeconomics, whatever else, right? Are they actually consuming the water, or is it just happenstance that the water's fluoridated? What other trickle-down factors? So that's why statistics shouldn't be used to prove anything. It should be used to enlighten us and open doors and make us ask more questions. Very, very good. Yes, Ellen? This might be another three-letter word response. School breakfast is a key to future success. A little heart-shaped egg. Breakfast might not just be the most important meal of a child's day, it might be one of the most important meals of their life. Did you eat breakfast today? You are so screwed if you didn't. New study. Non-profit group Share Our Strength. No Kid Hungry campaign. Nice little unbiased study there. No kid hungry. Breakfast is important. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it might be biased just slightly. It's like Milky Way paying for chocolate studies. Positive effect the school breakfast can have on child's performance in class and on standardized tests and what this can mean for the future. Okay? What do they find? 11 million low-income students eat a school-provided breakfast, share our strength, partner with professional services from Deloitte to analyze third-party studies and publicly available data to assess the impact of existing school breakfast plans on student academic performance. They found some rather eye-opening statistics. I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did. I'm sure there were lots of eye-opening statistics in there. Can we attribute it only to breakfast? Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe there are other socioeconomic measures that are involved. Not to mention the fact that I get worried when I start talking about child's performance in class and standardized test results. I worry about both of those things. Year after year after year, standardized tests are claimed to be biased against minorities. Year after year after year, the SAT, the ACT, so many of those standardized tests are shown to be biased against non-white folk. And yet we're using them here to talk about the key to student success. So I watch standardized tests out the window. I can't stand them personally. Child performance in class, I can kind of live with that if there was a good metric. If there was a good metric, but very often, that could be extraordinarily subjective how we're measuring that data. And then we start getting into the whole Likert scale argument. Like, how do you rate Johnny versus Janie? Oh, Johnny, he's a pain in my ass. He gets a 1 out of 10. But Janie, she's a darling. She gets a 9 out of 10. Okay, he's a pain in your ass. Does that mean he's a 1 out of 10 performance-wise? Or is he just a 1 out of 10 because he's a pain in your ass? You see what I'm getting at? Then it becomes a Likert scale thing, and you shouldn't even be averaging it anyway. So, again, I question the data collection, and I question the data analysis in this one. Is this saying stop eating breakfast? Oh my God, no. I'm a total bear when I don't eat breakfasts. I love eating breakfasts. I love eating, period. I'm Italian. But you gotta be careful when you start attributing something to something else. That's the only caution I put. Maybe ask questions. Maybe, is there a correlation? Are there other correlations? There's ways to check to see if correlations are independent or dependent on each other. Hopefully, if we have time, we'll get into that. One of my favorites and most disturbing ones, studies show 1 in 100 kids have autism. Wait, higher than a previous US estimate of 1 in 150. We've talked about this one, I think, in this class. Briefly, maybe it was 243. Was it 243, Emily? It was. Remember the difference between 1 in 150 and 1 in 100? They reclassified certain conditions as autism. So when they say 2 new government studies indicate that about 1 in 100 children have autism, up from 1 in 150, that first headline, which unfortunately is not past where most people will read, new number, a rise in people accepted 1 in 150. Doctors wonder about true increase. Some people won't even get through that, but go to the next study. Greater awareness, broader definitions, boom, and spotting autism in younger children, boom. So better diagnosis and also changing the definition. It doesn't mean more kids have autism now than used to have, it's just maybe more are being labeled at it. Now, again, you have to question the label. Are they truly? I don't know. I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about that condition. Like 0, except for that. Except for what I heard about in the psychology journals that reported on it. Oh, here's some interesting things. Autism rate rises to 1 in 50. This is from last April, about a year ago. So we got 1 in 150, 1 in 100, 1 in 50. And then this is an interesting little chart from the CDC, Center for Disease Control. I'm not sure why it's in the disease category, but whatever, Center for Disease Control. Prevalence of autistic, I think, is that spectrum disorder, ASD, autism, per 1,000 children, showing an alarming increase, yes? Alarming increase, that's 1.13%. 11.3 out of 1,000 is 1.13%, down from below 1%. The increase in autistic cases over the past decade is thought to be due to more thorough screening rather than a true spike in autism. I wonder if the person that wrote that article saw this graph or read that footnote. I don't know! I mean, when you see that next to this, it makes you scratch your head and go, are they talking to each other? Sometimes not. There's 310 million Americans. They always talk to each other.
Well, and the source on this other guy's is Wikipedia. So
Well, yeah. Although I'm a huge fan of Wikipedia. I'm one of those dorks that goes in there and finds errors and edits them mathematically. So I like the whole let's build something together, but
I'm not saying I don't like it.
But
I'm saying
there's holes, potentially holes. Yes, absolutely. I'm with you, Veronica, on that one. So again, it raises more questions in my mind than it answers, as I think statistics should. As I think statistics should. Good. Here's another one. We're going to analyze this one in class together. 1 dose of H1N1. Remember when H1N1 was all the rage? It was like the flu. It was the cool flu to have. A few years ago. This is back in 09. Bird flu, right? Or was it swine flu? Which one? Swine, yes. Yeah, swine flu is a good one. It was the vogue flu. It was amazing. It made such a big deal about it, and the normal flu killed more people that year than swine flu did. H1N1. Oh God. Oh, we're up like H12N16 now. Whatever. So passé. But what's interesting about it is, as it turns out, people were totally freaked out about H1N1. So freaked out, they ran out of vaccine for a while. And some clever British scientists said, what if we just water it down? To which the Americans said, are you out of your freaking British minds? To which the British scientists said, no, we actually tested it, everything's fine. To which America go, oh, okay. So send over some nasal inhalers and we'll take care of it. I actually have that data. So we can play with that in class when the time is right. So it's interesting, you can actually test. This is one of those clear-cut cases. Because vaccines actually have a minimum measurable difference tolerance they have to abide by, you can actually see if a vaccine is working or not. So for example, I believe in America, maybe worldwide, you have to control, I think, at least 75% of the antibodies in order for a vaccine to be considered effective. So there's a benchmark. And if you define that as effective, you can then see if your vaccine is doing that on average. And I actually have the data from this one, so we'll play with that one later. Yes. All right. Coffee. Yes. Any coffee fans in here? A few. Yeah. A few of us. Far fewer than I thought. Interesting. Green tea fans? Green tea? Yes. I tried green tea. It doesn't have the same anymore. I'm ruined. Been ruined by the stuff. So anyway, I decided to do the most current research I could find. I did this at end of last term. It's somewhat dated. So I was interested. I said, let's just look to see what the verdict is on coffee now, because coffee always seems as a love-hate relationship with the media. It's good for you. It's bad for you. It's good for you. It's bad for you. It's going to make you live longer. It's going to make you die tomorrow. So here's 11 reasons why you should drink coffee every day. And I love them. Americans get more antioxidants from coffee than anything else. I love that very first. Americans get more antioxidants from coffee than anything else. I love that statement. Because if you read that statement and take it at face value, you might misinterpret it, right? How might you misinterpret that statement? That coffee is higher in antioxidants than anything else. Yeah. Which I don't believe is true. The statement that Americans get more antioxidants from coffee than anything else might simply be that we drink more coffee than anything else that contains antioxidants. I don't see people downing bushels of blueberries every day like I see them drinking coffee. And blueberries are loaded with antioxidants, or what else? Green tea, I believe, has a whole buttload of them. Broccoli, maybe. But, you know, coffee, I didn't realize coffee had any, honestly. I didn't realize. That would make me burp occasionally, oxidize my lungs, my stomach. So, you gotta be careful. I hardly would say that's a reason why you should drink coffee every day. Because you're not proving or disproving anything. You're just simply stating a fact. Simply stating a fact. Then, over here, good for us or bad for us, 2 new studies disagree, which doesn't surprise me at all. Very often these studies do not disagree. It's that they're measuring two separate things, and the result for one is pro and the result for the other is con, and they appear to disagree, but they're actually talking about different things. Like, one might be the diuretic effect of coffee, and one might talk about, as my physical therapist told me about 2 weeks ago, that now when they talk about people and their hydration level, they will count cups of coffee in their hydration level. To which I chuckled. I said, really? So I can just drink 8 cups of coffee a day. Of course, that's going to kill me, because if I drink more than 4 cups of coffee a day, I'm going to have a higher death risk. But I can just drink my 8 cups of coffee a day and call it 8 cups of water. It's just like, time out. They count anything fluid going into your body before taking out the things like the diuretics. So in other words, a cup of coffee does count towards your overall hydration, but the caffeine also counts against it. Which I find an interesting way of doing it, yes? Why don't you just come up with a net difference, and let me add that into my -2 as my cup of coffee. I don't fully understand it, but that's how studies can disagree. You guys know that caffeine's a diuretic, at least you do now, because I just told you. Caffeine dries you out, right? What's the best way to check your hydration level on a daily basis? What's the best way? Easiest.
Urine color.
If you pee clear. Clearer you pee, more hydrated you are. Say that again?
What if you take vitamins?
I don't.
Then it'll be neon.
That'll be neon. If you take vitamin, what vitamins are neon, dude? What are you taking?
Multivitamin?
Vitamins.
Oh, multivitamins make, really?
B vitamins specifically.
Really?
They make skin.
B vitamins make you pee neon?
Oh
Well,
yeah, you
just
can drink light out.
really yellow.
Like a B complex?
Yeah.
I took one of those for years when I was a vegetarian.
It's because you're actually peeing out your vitamins.
Because it's water soluble. Makes perfect sense. I probably wasn't taking over the limit enough to make it yellow.
Oh,
Plus I drink a buttload of water
yeah,
too.
you get you.
I did not know you could pee neon. Makes me kind of happy though when I'm taking B vitamins again. Stop eating fish, start taking B vitamins. But anyway, this one is it. More than 28 cups of coffee a week may endanger health. I saw that and I'm like, who the hell drinks more than 28 cups of coffee? And then I realized that's congruent with this study. This is 4 cups a day. That's 28 cups a week multiplied by 7, isn't it? And I was like, holy crap. Isn't it amazing the mathematics of saying it that way versus that way make it seem different? Like I laughed at that. I'm like, please, 28 cups. I'm like, oh, I think they're close to 20. Shelby.
Are they talking cups as in like?
There is, if you Google, this is fun. If you Google a cup of coffee, it actually tells you a standard measurement. Yeah, this is fun. This is fun. Yeah, if you Google a cup of coffee, it tells you what it is. But it doesn't tell you how it's brewed. Cup of coffee. Oh, crap. I could have sworn I did it before.
Yeah, it's in your
I had gotten this before. Coffee. No. Oh, so maybe it's serving. Coffee serving. Maybe that's what it was.
Or
I Googled
size
it.
of a cup of coffee.
Coffee near Bend, Oregon. Oh, come on now. Coffee serving. I Googled something once. It's not showing up now. I Googled something once and it actually, a Google window popped up and said 8 ounces. Like it actually popped up and told me that. I've been using it ever since. Which I think is fairly, little cups, I think that's fairly standard. It's 4 of them will be a quart. So that's essentially, that's 20 ounces there. So that'd be 3/4 of a quart-ish. So their 4 cups a day would be a quart, a Nalgene of coffee is what they're talking about. But I don't know how they talk about brewing. I didn't read detailed down to see how they're brewing it. Are they leaving it like when I make coffee, I leave the grounds in for like an hour, which is probably stupid. It's really nice and bitter that way. But you know, or just a pour over where it's touching the grounds for 30 seconds. I don't know, and I'm sure there's differences in the caffeine content. So that's a bummer. I did that before for me. Okay, so anyway, and hopefully we have volume. I wanted to talk to you guys briefly at the end of the day about where we're headed next. And these fine gentlemen from Southern California are going to kind of walk us through